Have you ever thought that a simple afternoon in the Cleveland area, who could become the scene of the most insane and hilarious? What have you seen? What if I told you that all of this ended up in the headlines, not for the sake of robbery or the escape of the breathtaking, but also because of the very nature decided to make the role of the scripture, with the squirrels fierce, and the wasp's revenge and taking care of it? It seems like the script of a movie, it's a comedy, but trust me, it was the reality. Have you ever gone through something like that? In that sense, the universe is messing with you, in a way that no one could have imagined? As it is, this is a story that I'm going to share with you now. Will it make you laugh? If it chill you to the core and, at the same time, to think, to where nature can go to when they feel threatened? Hello, my name is Isabella Paste, and I promise you, it's a common story. I've been there, it is present at the right time, in the jungle city of Cleveland decided to show you that, yes, she has the power, and a willingness to enforce their own justice. You will understand what I mean by this in a moment, but let nothing and no one was prepared for the surprise that was coming from there. And look, it is not an exaggeration to say that this story was turned into a kind of epic episode of the National Geographic magazine, with a touch of comedy, pure, one of those guys that you just can't stop watching it, even though I know that it's real. Stay with me until the end, because what starts out as an attempt to kidnap him to get into a real war between the humans and the power of wild nature. The scene that takes place to make anyone laugh, cry, and spend time with my mouth open, while at the same time. You will see that, sometimes, the best protection comes from the unexpected, and the nature of it, if you feel threatened, don't play into the service. Now, in order to understand what really happened on that day in Cleveland, you need to go to the next step. Because of what seemed to be a criminal offense has turned into a real war of the insects, squirrels, and all hairy. And it's the story, my friend, is just beginning. To the extent that we are led to reflect upon the moments of a surprise, we've realized that in life, many times, it challenges us to look beyond the obvious. The scene in Cleveland, it was not just an isolated incident, but a call to help you understand how the unexpected can arise, in more places than we had imagined. Maybe, deep down, all of you are connected to the force of nature, the response of those who feel threatened, and our own capacity to surprise us with what they believe to be weak or insignificant. And so, with this in mind, it's hard not to feel touched by how much the events in the show, that there is an intelligence that is invisible on the world around us. This is an expertise that you don't have the words, which manifests itself in the most subtle, often putting us exactly where we need to be learning something new. Every detail, every animal, every movement, it seems to say that there is a purpose, even if, at times, only we can understand, after all, about to happen. If all of this makes sense to you, leave it here in the comments on what you played. Or do you think that these events are likely to be in a teaching capacity? Your opinion is very important and it helps to create a genuine connection between all of us. We are here to learn and reflect together. If this content resonates with the way you see the world, enjoy the video. It's a way of showing us what that message is important. So that we can continue to walk together in this journey of discovery, we encourage you to subscribe to the channel. This is an opportunity to increase our understanding and to build the community that believes in the power of shared knowledge. And now, for us to continue to deepen this topic, there's something even more important what you need to understand. I now want to go more in depth on this topic, because a lot of times, our greatest strength is not in the rational understanding of things, but in the way that we carry it within us, a layer of silence, for fear of the expectations that I have never really been in question. The truth is that, as much as we try to understand it in the lock, and many of those limitations are overcome in the details that we don't always get to see on the surface. They are all in the little things, the decisions that we make without realizing it, in the order in which we react in the face of the success or failure of our routine in mind that, very often, it's a repeat pattern that you don't even remember where it started. It is as if we are caught up in a web of invisible fabric by the beliefs that we have learned in the back, so the images with which we are placed, by the trials that we have, without question, all of it, forming a sort of wall of built-in sense keeps us from moving forward. And then there comes a big question. How can we recognize that the web? How to undo those knots, which often appear to be so strong, so deeply rooted in our history and in our lives? The answer, perhaps, is in for a closer look at the inside, the courage to face the silence that we keep, on the provision of confronting our own shadow. Because you are, in fact, they're not something outside of us. They are the result of the choices we make, our small, accepting you dismiss him to change, to accept pain as a part of growing up. And many of those choices have been made in an automatic way, by the need for security, as they are afraid to break down what seem to be our only source of stability. But what if you can see beyond the fear? When you realize that true freedom begins with the courage to break down, if you allow yourself to feel it, to accept that our story is not a sentence, but it's a chance to rewrite our narrative. This is a journey of self-discovery, is a kind of open up the built-in ports, where each discovery reveals a new layer, us. And, in doing so, we come to realize that many of our limitations are nothing but ghosts that are gaining strength in your mind. When you eat, the doubt, the insecurity, and the truth are the inner voices that tell us that we are not able to, they don't deserve it, that there is no way out. But, in fact, these voices, they are just the echoes of the past. The liberation is precisely because of the ability to hear the voice, recognize their origins, and, at the same time, pick up a new narrative, one that is closer to our true nature, the more you align with our dreams and our deepest values. Oh, and here comes the reflection that it might seem simple, but it is one of the keys to the most powerful of the transformation. It starts with the decision to look to it with sincerity, and to accept what you find, the more uncomfortable they may be, and agree to take it a step further. Because, a lot of times we are so focused on looking for answers outside, trying to find solutions, that we forget that real change happens from the inside to the outside. It's like a seed that needs time, care, and patience to grow and morph into something stronger, more resilient and more able to flourish even in the most adverse conditions. And, in the process, we discover that the greatest strength we have is our own personal courage to continue, to persevere, to believe in the possibility of something better. It is in the way we think about our own faults, our own limitations, our doubts, and the courage to move forward is what really makes it stand out. Because, deep down, it's all about choice, choosing our overcome by fear, or to decide that, in spite of it, let's move on to the pursuit of truth. And when you do that, you start to realize that life isn't a straight line, but it's a journey of ups and downs, the lessons contained, the small victories, which, as a whole, and transform who we are. It is in this realization that we find the strength to overcome the limit to make room for the new, to our best version. And, more importantly, to understand that the journey is as unique, personal, and full of nuances that only those who are willing to hear the truth can't understand it. And, at this point, you might be asking yourself, how do I actually take the leap? How do I break up with the one that seems to be so deeply ingrained? The answer to this lies in the courage to allow yourself to feel in the mood to let go of the control that we think we have it all and for all, and in the faith that, even in the silence, there is a wisdom that guides us. Because sometimes the answer is in the word on the board, or in the opinion of others, but of our own essence in a deep connection to what we really are when we let go of the shackles of fear and doubt. It is as if, in dispermos of this surface layer, we can see clearly the path that you have always been there, just waiting for you that you had the courage to take the first step. And in that moment, you realize that the greatest obstacle to this change, we are by ourselves, by our own limiting beliefs, and our resistance to the new, the desire to stay in your comfort zone, even if it is for a prisoner who is invisible. But, at the same time, we realize that it is an opportunity for growth, a chance to learn that it's all that we need is within ourselves, in our ability to change, to evolve, and to reinvent ourselves each and every day. Because, deep down, we are of the possibilities, the dreams that you still don't pass, in a quiet strength that it touches our souls, waiting for the right moment to wake up. This alarm occurs only when we choose to stop, to run away, to deny it, to hide behind excuses. Just look inside, your heart is open and ready for you to discover who you really are. I now want to go more in depth on this topic. Because, deep down, this is a journey of self-discovery. It's like a journey through the sea is calm but full of chains will not be seen. Every step we take is in the direction of the inside. It is like to navigate through uncharted waters, where the maps in the traditional stop making sense, and it's just our intuition can guide us. And, as we dive a little bit deeper, we realize that a lot of these movements are the result of our own limiting beliefs, the stories we tell to ourselves and we often don't remember to be created. In these stories, and these truths that we think we are absolute work such as bars and invisible, which we hold to a standard of living that does not satisfy us, that it is not a reflection of our essence is pure. And it is in that moment of reflection that begins to come up with a different perception of everything that limits us. It is, in fact, it is a mental construct, a story that you can rewrite it at any time. To the extent that the desmanchamos the layers of conditioning, we have become more and more aware of the power that we need to be able to choose who you want to be. And it is that choice, and often, it's more liberating than any achievement on the outside. Because, deep down, every big change starts within ourselves and in the decision to abandon the comfort zone of the old certainties, and to open up space for a new narrative. This narrative is written by our actions, our emotions, our desires, the more authentic ones, the ones that often remain hidden under such a routine: self-pity, fear, and uncertainty. When we are allowed to listen to what you really feel, without judgment, we can begin to understand that it's our essence. It is like a light that never goes out, it just gets overshadowed by the noise of the world and of our own questions. And this is where the magic happens. When you recognize that light, it begins to glow with more intensity, illuminating the ways that before it seemed to be dark, with no way out. Every decision that we make on the basis of this consciousness, it's like a step out of those shadows, and then, over time, we notice that it isn't bound to the constraints of the past, but the wide opportunity to create a new reality. This is a shift in perspective that is, as an internal revolution, a true reinvention of who we are and what we can do. And, in the process, we have learned that the real power lies in our ability to choose, to respond, to turn every obstacle into an opportunity for growth. At bottom, it tells us that we are the creators of our own story, and each chapter is dependent on our decisions in the most sincere. When we stop looking for answers outside, and we listen to what our heart really cries out, it changes everything. Because, in doing so, we become the victims of their circumstances and grow to be in control of our own destiny. And that responsibility, although it might seem daunting at first glance, it is also liberating, for it points to what we have inside of us, a force that cannot be shaken, with a courage that only comes when we choose to see the naked truth of who we really are. And, in doing so, we realize that this whole journey of self-discovery is not a straight line, but it's a constant cycle of the discovery of the falls and new beginnings, the know-how that pile up and make us stronger. For this reason, when you think about all of this, we are not aware of the true awakening is not a single event but a series of little moments of clarity that, together, make up a new way of looking at life. A vision of a more aware, more loving, more in tune with what really touches our hearts. And when you realize this, we realize that all change begins with the courage to look into the inside, with sincerity, and to let go of what limits us, and embrace that which makes us vibrate to the truth. This is an invitation, is a constant evolution, a chance to free ourselves from the bonds that we created for you, and to embrace, at the core of the most pure, the one that never ceases to be, even when everything around you seems dark and confused. And so, we continue on the journey, with the assurance that you have, the more you connect with this inner truth is, the stronger it becomes in our ability to transform the world around us, to create a reality that reflects who you really are. I now want to go more in depth on this topic. It is in this moment of reflection, you realize just how much all of what we live in, that we have, has a direct influence on our perception of the world and in our very being. Too often, we get stuck in a kind of narrative that we have been forced, in a story that is not necessarily our own, but which, for some reason, and we end up believing in it as if it were an absolute truth. And there you have it, without realizing it, we begin to live in accordance with the roadmap, the outer bearing in mind that the real freedom comes from within, from a genuine connection with our innermost self. It is in the internal space of the house that everything is changed, because of the recognition of our own limitations, our hurts, and our capabilities. We can begin to understand that change is not something that comes out of it, but it's something that is born within us. When we dive deeper into this journey of self-discovery, we realize that a lot of our own personal beliefs have been created on the basis of fears, insecurities, or even experience, which, over time, they have become obstacles to be seen. These are the obstacles that often prevent us from seeing beyond our comfort zone, that cause us to doubt our potential, creating a barrier between what we are and what we want to be. The big reveal is that this is a barrier that is not something external, but it is a mental construct, a story we tell over and over until it becomes an unquestionable truth. And when you realize this, we begin to question each and every one of these stories, each and every one of those stories that limit our growth. It's like opening a window into a whole new world of possibilities, where one can rewrite our own itineraries, choose a new color for the paint in our own reality. From the moment we begin to realize that we are the authors of our lives, everything changes in a way that is almost magical. Because the responsibility is no longer to be something heavy, and it turns out to be a chance to create, to innovate, to experiment with. The real freedom is in your decision to move on, even if it involves facing fear of the unknown. Each and every decision we take, every step we take towards a more authentic to us, it's a statement of who we are waking up to a new reality, a reality that reflects who we really are, without the mask, without the mask, without the mask. And it is this authenticity, and the courage to be who you are, in fact, that is what really sets us free. It's like a light that illuminates his path, which seemed to be dark, and with no way out, showing that all of the things that it's nearly impossible to outwit he was, in fact, it is a question of changing your perspective, and adjust the focus. And within that journey, there's a beauty that's often overlooked, the one to realize that personal growth is not a straight line, it's not a final destination, but the dance continued between the higher and the lower, between the discovery and new beginnings. Every fall, every mistake, every moment of doubt, and it brings with it an opportunity to learn something new about yourself. The real power lies in the ability of the host to these experiences, to understand that they are part of the process, that is, to bring them, we are making it a much more powerful version, to be more aware and be more aligned with our essence. And such a deep connection with our inner selves gives us the courage to keep going, even when things seem uncertain, because we know that deep down inside, we are sailing into a place of greater authenticity for more peace of mind. And, at this point, it is clear that the greatest change happens when we stop seeking out the stuff that can only be found within. When we let go of the idea of happiness, success, and fulfillment is something external to it, and we understand that all of what we really seek is a matter of inner connection and alignment with our truth. It is a kind of freedom, because it sets us free from the weight of trying to please, to fit in, to conform to what we have been taught to be the default. We understand that we are unique in that they have a flavor that no one can replace you, and you, to connect with her, everything around you starts to make sense. In a way, the more light, the more it is true. Such an understanding is the first step to lasting change, a change that comes from within, not outside, that it becomes not only our vision, but it is also a reality. And it is for this reason that the journey is as powerful as it is, because it invites us to look inward, to listen to what our heart truly say, without fear of finding out that a lot of times what you find in there is the fact that it defies all of the things that we've been taught. It is a journey of courage, vulnerability, and delivery to your door. And as you embark on this process, we realize that the highest freedom is the acceptance of who we truly are, with all our imperfections, our doubts, and our dreams as the most serious. Because, at the end of the day, the true transformation is on the hunt for something from outside, but to reconnect with the one that's always been inside of us, a quiet strength, a light that never goes out, is a substance that, when discovered, will guide us to a place that only we can create. And when you understand it, it is the more light, the more you take, the more real. I now want to go more in depth on this topic. It is, at this time, when we begin to understand that every change has to come from a place within, everything becomes clear. Like, all of a sudden, our old layers of self-deception, they began to fade into the background, leaving the show with an essence that is pure, that it had always been there, hidden in the mists of the routine, the fear, the doubt. And it is at this point that we realize that the journey isn't about conquering something external, but rather to rediscover who we really are behind all the masks that we've created along the way. It's like a silent revolution, a transformation that does not require the applause of validation, because it takes place in the intimacy of the heart, in the silence of our hearts and minds. And then, when you connect with this inner strength, we can begin to understand that what really matters is our authenticity and our deeper truth, one that often remains hidden for a lifetime of hope from the collections of the comparison. It's like, all of a sudden, a soft light illuminates all the things that seem to be confusing or meaningless, revealing the behind the scenes of our very existence. At this point, we realize that the freedom that we look out there, it only makes sense when we find within ourselves a space of peace and authenticity. And this peace is not something that is gained by wealth or status, but it's an achievement that comes from understanding that we are all complete, even with our imperfections, our mistakes, and our vulnerabilities. This understanding allows us to look at the world in a new light, without the weight of judgment or the need to constantly please. Is it a freedom to be who we really are, without the mask, without the mask, without the mask? And when you do that, you start to realize that life is starting to get a rhythm, a different, more aligned with our true selves, as if every step you take, every decision, every choice, it's a genuine expression of our inner selves. And this deep connection is like a never-ending source of energy, creativity, and the courage to move forward even in the face of the most difficult challenges. Because, deep down, we know we are not looking for something external to fill in gaps, but we are living in a reality that is born from the inside to the outside. This is the true freedom and the power of truth to be aligned with who you are, in fact, even while the world insists on showing to the contrary. And, this discovery is, in this connection, it is a constant invitation to a new opportunity to relearn to trust, to love and to accept every part of us, even if we would prefer to conceal or deny it. It is a process that requires courage, yes, but also a softness, a gentleness, with one's own soul. Because, deep down, all of it was always there, just waiting for us to have the courage to look inward, to listen to what really matters to you, to accept that it is a more radical change happens first in the us, and then it manifests in the world around us. I now want to go more in depth on this subject in this quest for authenticity and the delivery of what we are. In fact, it is a journey of self-discovery, continuous, in a delicate dance between what we want and what we really are. When you realize that every experience, every pain, every joy, and they are an essential part of this process, shaping our lives in a way that is unique, one that only we can understand. And, in this way, we have learned the value of silence, of listening, of your presence. Because of the silencing of the voices are external as well as internal, and we were able to listen to what they have always been there, throbbing, waiting to be recognized. It's like a symphony that only reveals itself when we stop trying to control everything and just let the music flow. And, in doing so, we believe that the greatest freedom is accepting every step, every feeling, every doubt, and as part of a sacred journey of growth. It's a connection that we reconcile with our own rhythm, our own soul, and makes us realize that we are the instruments of this great band called life, where each individual has their own role, their song, their vibrancy is unique. And when you understand it, it's the lightest, the most real, the most beautiful place. Because, deep down, what you are looking for is not a perfect life, but a life that is authentic, that is aligned with who you really are. And, if you make this choice, we have discovered that the peace you are searching has never been out there, but it's always been inside of us, just waiting for us to have the courage to meet it and live it. And in that moment of deep emotional connection, we can begin to understand that the greatest power lies in our ability to truly be ourselves, even when the world tries to pull us out of our lives. Because, in the end, that's the biggest revolution you can do: accept who you are, and with all the details of our imperfections, and our lights on, and, in so doing, create a life that is a genuine expression of that authenticity. And then, when I open this portal, we have realized that all the power, all the beauty, all the magic, they've always been there, just waiting to be discovered. Now, I want you to go even deeper on this topic. Because, in the end, that's the biggest revolution you can do: accept who you are, and with all the details of our imperfections, and our lights on, and, in so doing, create a life that is a genuine expression of that authenticity. And then, when I open this portal, we have realized that all the power, all the beauty, all the magic, they've always been there, just waiting to be discovered. Now, I want you to go even deeper on this topic. It's like, when we can accept our true essence, we are awakening an ancient power, almost ancient, and that had always been dormant inside of us, but that just shows his power when we recognize our own truth. It's like, to be free from masks, to the expectations of the external and of the opinions of others. We might finally hear what it is our soul has always wanted to say, that quiet voice that is often drowned out by the noise of the world. And in that silence, we understand that connects us to something greater, a kind of a bridge to the invisible, which leads us straight to the heart of our deepest self, where is our true essence, which is free of constraints, free of the limitations that have been imposed from time to time. This is a journey of self-acceptance, is a kind of internal alchemy, the transformation that often occurs in the form of silent, almost inaudible, but it has a game-changing impact on our way of looking at life. Because when we allow ourselves to face our vulnerability and courage, you start to realize that it is, in fact, it is a source of strength and a connection to the authenticity of the most pure. It is as if, by accepting our own imperfections, we dissolve the barriers that we've created to protect us from fear of judgment, rejection. And, in doing so, we realize that we are more than our mistakes, our shortcomings, our failures. We are a unique blend of stories, dreams, sorrows, and joys, and all woven together in a tapestry of who we are, we can weave. And this painting, because it is more complex, it's beautiful, precisely because of their imperfections, because of its originality. When you immerse yourself in a universe of self-awareness, we can begin to understand that all real change comes from the inside out. Don't even try to turn the outside world without taking care of the inside. This is a lesson many learn the hard way, many times, tripping over its own feet, but once it sinks in, it becomes a veritable skeleton key to a fuller life. Because, when you try to connect with your essence, is all around you shall gain a new meaning, a new color. The relationships become more and more profound, and the challenges of light, and a sense of purpose, of course. It's as if, when you accept who we really are, we are releasing a never-ending source of energy, a force that pushes us forward even in the face of the most violent storms. And then, in a movement of acceptance, we have also learned to be more compassionate to us. You understand it's all part of the process of evolution, which is time every time. On each block, this is an opportunity for growth, which then leads us to a higher consciousness. This is why, this is a journey of self-discovery, is not an easy path, but it is the truth that you can choose. Because, when we look honestly, we are facing our deepest fears and discover that they do not have the power to set up, just show us where there is still a space for healing, growth, and development. And, in doing so, we realize that true freedom is to be who you are, without the mask, with no places to hide. It's a freedom that comes from the inside. It manifests itself in our attitude, in our speech, in our presence. And the more we give ourselves to this process, the more we feel that we are coming back to our center, our core, the more pure, more true. It is as if, by agreeing to our lives, we are going back in control of our own history, and writing of each chapter, along with courage, love with faith, from which we are able to create a life that truly reflects who is the most beautiful and true in all of us. And, in doing so, we realize that there is nothing more powerful than a soul that is aligned with your truth, and it becomes a light that shines is not the only way, but it's also the way the people around you. I now want to go more in depth on this subject, because, in essence, that acceptance is the bridge that connects us to a dimension of infinite possibilities, an open door to the expression of our highest potential. When one is freed from the shackles of judgment, comparison, and fear of being seen, we make room for the things that we are able to give birth. And, in the flower, we find that everything we were looking for outside, the recognition, validation, and success, he was already deep within us, just waiting for the time to come forward. It's as if, when we look inside, we find an entire universe of possibilities, hidden talents, passions, forgotten dream that is, out of fear or doubt, they were saved for such a long time. And, by using the control of the journey, internal it, we perceive that we are the only ones responsible for making it this kinetic energy into concrete actions at different times of the authenticity and true. But it's also important to understand that this transformation does not happen overnight. It takes patience, dedication, and a provision for if you look at it with love and compassion. Because, a lot of times, we are faced with our own resistance to that inner voice that insists on the need to remind us of our own limitations, our doubts, our fears, the more profound. And it is in this conflict that we find our greatest strength, the ability of us to rebuild, to forgive ourselves, for us to reinvent ourselves each and every day. And, in doing so, we notice that you're building a new narrative, a story of which we are the protagonists on a journey of self-discovery and self-love. And, in this case, what once seemed difficult, it is possible to. The one that seemed to be far away, it's real. Because you are, in fact, it all starts with a decision for the inside. You decide that you are worthy of all of the things that we want, that we would accept in its entirety, our colors, our shadow, and our light. And then, when that decision will be taken with an open heart, everything around you start to reflect on this new frequency, the energy, authenticity, and freedom. And in that moment of deep connection with our inner selves, we find that the world has been changed. Because, when you accept, we allow our actions to be more in line with our values and our truth. And this creates a chain of vibration, which attract those who are right next to us, which is a source of inspiration. It changes. After all, it is the authenticity of it is a light that never goes out, and a force that, once awakened, never to be hidden. And so, we've built a place where the courage to be who you really are is the key to a fulfilling life, full of purpose and meaning. A life where freedom is the greatest gift that you can give us. And, as long as this journey happens, is to make sure that everything, absolutely everything, and it starts within each of us the courage we look at the sincerity and love, and to embrace each and every detail of who you are, and move forward with confidence that this is our true pure. I now want to go more in depth on this topic. As it is, and this is where we see the greatest change happens, when, in fact, we can begin to understand that the power to change our reality, that is the way we see ourselves. It is not something external. It is not something that comes out of it, but it's a built-in, and a decision to daily reconnect with our inner selves, and, above all, our deepest truth. Too many times, and have spent years living up to the expectations that have not been ourselves, and feeding questions that have been imposed upon them, carrying the guilt that does not belong to me, and keeping in mind that, at the bottom, we are amazing, and capable of giving a new meaning to everything that limits us. This finding, which seems to be so simple in theory, but it is a journey of courage, to confront, to stripping in the emotional, because it requires us to look inward with a brutal honesty, no masks, no excuses, just with a sincere desire to set us free. And, in doing so, we find that the greatest battle is not outside, but within us, in our minds, in our limiting beliefs, with the story that we have created over of who we are and what we deserve. And it is this narrative, one that is many, many times, it is an invisible thread that binds us, that keeps us stuck in a comfort zone, which, in fact, it's never been comfortable with the fact that it seems to us securely seem to be well known. So, with the great turning that happens when you have decided to rewrite this story, when we see ourselves as the authors of our own destiny, with all faults, our fears, our doubts, but also with a renewed courage to keep going. It is at this point that everything changes, because we no longer have a victim of circumstances, and we become the creators are aware of our life. And that change begins with small actions, with a choice of daily living, with a mindset, which means that the real power lies in our ability to choose who we want to be, regardless of the setting on the weekends. The freedom that you have been searching for, this is not something you conquer at once and for all, but it's a continuous practice of self-awareness and self-confidence to allow yourself to make mistakes, to learn, to reinvent themselves. In this process, we have discovered that the authenticity is our greatest treasure, because it sets us free from the bondage of a life shaped by the expectations of both external and connects us to the things that truly a unique individuals are able to create, to transform, to love, and to be happy by simply accepting who you are. And in that moment, it all becomes clear. The freedom to be, it's a daily choice to stay loyal to the core, even when the world tries to convince us of the contrary. It's a decision to trust in our potential to enhance our quality, welcome to our shadow, and to follow the path that your heart tells you without fear of making a mistake, without the need for approval from anyone else. In fact, this is a journey of self-discovery, is one of the most beautiful beaches you can walk in, because it tells us that we are much more than we think, and that we have an inner strength that is many times that it is hidden under the layers of insecurity and doubt. And this power, when awakened, it's a light that lights up the whole of our journey, guiding you every step of the way with hope, determination, and self-esteem. It's like a seed that, when planted in the soil of our soul, the origin of the slowly growing, and growing stronger every day, until one day we realize that we are able to flourish on our own fulfillment. And when you understand it, and we believe that true freedom is not something that we earn from the outside to the inside, but it's an achievement that the first takes place within us, the decision to accept us, love us, and to follow the truth. This is the essence of all that is at the root of our transformation, and it is there that we find that life, with all its challenges, it is a unique opportunity for us to reconnect with all that is beautiful and true in the us. I now want to go more in depth on this topic. Because, deep down, could there be another way that you make as you embark on this journey of self-discovery that is all we seek is out there, and the answer that you both want, they are hidden inside of us, in a layer that is too often avoided to exploit it for fear, for doubt, or simply too lazy to look at our own heart. It's as if we are carrying a little box of secrets, full of unresolved emotions, the dreams, the forgotten, and the truths which they insist on staying hidden, even when life pushes you out of your comfort zone. And, in the search for something greater, for meaning, for a lasting peace, we face the harsh reality is that the biggest obstacles are ourselves, and our limiting beliefs, our doubts, built in, for our strength to accept who we really are. From the moment that we start to look into it, everything changes. It's like a magnifying glass, which sets out slowly, revealing the details of it before, seemed to not be seen. And from there, we realize that a lot of our battles, our fears, and our frustrations are nothing more than a reflection of a disconnect on the deeper, more true, more pure. When we allow ourselves to immerse yourself in the vastness of the inner, we find that the power to change our reality, it is the decision of the us to reconnect with the truth that is hidden, that which was always there, just waiting for the right moment to be found. The truth is that over the course of your life, we are trained to search for answers outside, and to rely on external factors, such as, in the opinion of others on projects that have come from the outside to the inside. But, in essence, everything that you need to have already resides inside of you, like a never-ending source of light and wisdom. And as much as we venture through this journey of self-discovery, the more we realize that the source will never run out, that it's a part of who we really are. It's like a light that, once lit, illuminates the darkness that he'd make a point of engaging, bringing clarity, peace, and a sense of belonging that I never had experienced before. In this process, a lot of times, we are faced with truths that haunt you, that seem to defy our entrenched beliefs, which may require us to rewrite our history. But it is precisely at this moment of discomfort that the transformation happens in a much deeper way. Because, as we have in the us is troubling you, to embrace our shadows, we have the freedom to choose who they really want to be without a mask, without the limitations imposed by fear. And this freedom is what drives us to look forward, to create a new narrative, a story that is aligned with our essence is genuine. And this is the journey of the dive, within which we come to realize the greatness of the human being and their infinite capacity to reinvent themselves, to heal, to rise above any adversity. Because, deep down, we are all made up of light and shade, strength and vulnerability, doubt and certainty. And you learn how to embrace this duality. This complexity is what gives us true freedom. When we understand that the transformation is not something that comes out of it, but that comes from within, it all takes on a new meaning. Every challenge, every achievement, every step taken in this direction, it will be a celebration of the courage to face up to the truth, as hard as it may be. And, if you think about all of this, we see that the greatest secret of life is that the courage to look in the mirror and recognize, without being afraid, of who you really are. Because, in doing so, we open the door to a journey of self-transformation, which is infinite, never-ending, and what it leads us to a state of peace and hospitality, which, very often, we don't even know that was possible. And in that moment, it all starts to make sense because of the connection with the essence more deeply, gives us strength, clarity, and a new view of the world, where every step is an opportunity for growth, self-love, and wake up to a life that is truly worth living. I now want to go more in depth on this subject, because, at the unveiling of this layer, over the years, we have realized that the real power is in our choice to accept, to love, and to honor those who are of the truth, regardless of outside opinions, expectations of others, or of the difficulties that arise along the way. The latter is a bridge leading us to a state of inner peace, where everything seemed to be complicated, it becomes a lightweight, comprehensive, and, above all, the AC power adapter. And it's this lightness that we find the strength to move forward, with courage and hope, knowing that, when we look inside, we are discovering the universe, the most beautiful that exists in the universe that is within each one of us. He writes in, "I feel like this is the real thing." And in that moment of reflection, I realize that this is a journey of self-discovery is not just an external search to find answers, but to immerse yourself deeper into the essence of what has always been there, invisible to the eye, but palpable in the heart. It's as if, when we accept who we are, in fact, we begin to unlock the doors that have been closed because of fear, doubt, or just in a rut of a life that take us away from our true essence. Your acceptance of it, and in this sense, it serves as a sort of bridge to the invisible, which connects to who we are, what we can become a bridge of understanding, forgiveness, and, most of all, love yourself. When you look at the inside with this goal in mind, a genuine, all is clear to even the parts of ourselves that we hide away, as if they were in the shadows, who continue to haunt us. But, in truth, they are only fragments of a story that has not yet been fully written, and that it only reveals itself to the extent that we allow ourselves to see and be welcoming to each and every detail, every scar, every dream in sleep. This is an act of hospitality than to find the real power to transform, because we fight against ourselves, and we start to walk to the side of your own the truth, no matter how challenging it may seem. And there you have it, everything that seemed to be far away or out of reach, it becomes a part of us, an essential piece of the puzzle we are putting together, with patience and courage. The journey of self-discovery is no longer a mission is hard, and it becomes a dance, a smooth exchange of energy with the universe, where each step is guided by an intuition, quietly, almost in a whisper, that he tells us to move forward. In it, we see that every challenge, every pain, every loss, in fact, are the seeds of something bigger than themselves. They will germinate within us in the form of strength, resilience, and hope. It's as if, when we accept our own faults, our own limitations, we are giving permission to the light within us to shine more intensely, illuminating the paths before they are hidden, revealing to the possibilities that before would have seemed impossible. This is an in-depth understanding transforms our relationship to the world, to other people, and most of all to ourselves. And to be free from the shackles of judgment and fear, we can begin to see life in a different way. The more light, the more authentic and more full of potential. It is a discovery of a silent, almost as if in a revelation that is happening in the quiet of your heart, a place where everything makes sense, even if the words have not been spoken. At this time, we understand that our greatest treasure is within us, hidden under the layers of doubts and the expectations and standards that have been imposed from time to time. And that is the true freedom arises when we've stepped out of the chains inside, allowing for our lives to flourish without fear and without any resistance. From there, it all becomes a matter of trust, surrender, realize that we are exactly who we need to be, to live this experience we call life. And then, once we accept this fact, we begin to realize that our story, for more complex or painful it may have been, it's this one that shapes us, it makes us stronger, and that, ultimately, leads us back home to a home that is our own heart. I now want to go more in depth on this issue, because this is a journey of self-discovery are endless, and the more you delve into it, the more new discoveries emerge as a star, shining bright on a clear night, by inviting him to go exploring. These stars are, in fact, the signs that the universe sends reminders that we are all in the right way, and that's all that we live in it is part of a larger plan, even if at times it may seem that we are lost in the darkness. And on that journey, we learn to trust our intuition, to hear that voice, which is often hidden by the noise of the outside world, but in truth, this is our guide to the most accurate. That voice, it reminds us that we are complete beings, able to create, to transform, to love, and to forgive. And that, in taking on this fullness, as we try to get outside of what is already inside us, just waiting to be recognized. In the process, we realize that the biggest secret is not to gain something from outside, but in the us, to reconnect us to the truth of our essence is pure and true. It's as if, when you make that connection, because all the rest of the us to gain a new meaning, a new color, a new vibe. The most fascinating part of it is that the transformation does not require effort, forced labor, but a smooth delivery. Acceptance is quiet. It's going to become more and more natural. It's like learning how to dance to the beat of the soul, without fear of falling down, as each step is a part of the routine that only we can create. And, in it, we realize that our true freedom lies in the authenticity, and the courage to be who you really are, without the mask, without the mask, without the mask. And then, in the free layer of the mask, we begin to live more fully, more in tune with our inner selves, and to do this, on the other, and it turns it all around us. Because of the authenticity that is the power that moves, which is creating a wave of change that has been spreading like a seed in fertile ground. Then, when you accept who you are, with all our imperfections, we are contributing to the world the most real, the most gracious, the most beautiful place. And to this day, that it often seems as a challenging one, in fact, is the greatest gift you can receive, the opportunity to reconnect with what is most precious in all of us. I now want to go more in depth on this topic. If you've come this far, it's because that's the message he spoke to you in some way. Few people have been able to keep up until the end of the video as well, and if you're still here so it made sense to you, leave us a comment. I've been up to in the end. You know what this conversation is resonant with someone who's decided to stick around until the very last second to me, full of gratitude, and highlights the importance of sharing your thoughts about it. This content is played to you if you sign up for the channel so we can continue together on this journey of discovery and growth. Here, the goal is to create a space where we can reflect on, learn from, and build the connection with what really matters to you. And, if this video is brought to you for some insight, leave a like so we help this message reach even further by playing with other people who also need to hear the words. After all, this day is ours, and that will only make sense when shared with the ones who really want to improve. So, feel free to subscribe, like, and keep it with me for the next step in this discussion. There's a video right here on the side, which complements this subject. Click and follow me on there as the journey continues, and we have much more for you to explore it together. If you enjoyed this study, please know that it is only a small part of what we might discover when we stop to look at the inside, with a calm and sincere. Here, everything is to be done with caution, considering the strengthening of this connection that we have with ourselves and with the world around us. So, until the next video, and remember, this journey is yours, and you in each step here, it makes all the difference.